In this episode, we're going to talk about 5 things that you can do to get closer to your business goals. If lately you've been posting, pitching, and saying yes to all of the things and still wondering whether that's pushing you forward, this episode is for you. My goal is to help you feel clearer and more in control of your creative business. I've had these conversations with my previous guests, and I thought, what better way to sum it up than putting it all together in one reflections episode? So by the end, you will have actionable insights that you can implement in your creative practice. How to choose the right clients, designing with purpose, showing up with intention, and really building work that lasts. Hi, my name is Anika, an engineer turned designer and podcast host. Ableheads is a podcast where we discuss creativity and business and everything in between. I've had conversations with illustrators, brand strategists, and creative business owners about designing with purpose and building a sustainable creative practice. And I always keep seeing the same patterns where people get stuck, what frees them up, and what actually works for them. So I paired those insights with real research so you're not just getting my experience or conversations, you're getting ideas that you can trust and really test for yourself. So let's jump into it. Lesson number 1. Let's start with success. Often, a lot of us equate success directly with money, rates, revenues, and stuff like that. Although money is just a metric, meaning is the engine behind the work. Let me draw your attention to a finding in a Harvard Business Review, a theme that shows up again and again in the research. Meaningful work outranks pay, promotion, and perks for what people actually care about. When the work feels meaningful, engagement and retention go up. But what does that mean? Paid well but dead inside is not a winning long term strategy. I'm thinking how you would implement that from a business point of view. Because purpose isn't just a wall poster, it's predictive, right? Firms where the purpose is clearly understood tend to perform better later on. I think what it means is clarity of purpose is helping the numbers and not just the mood. So here is how I would use that. I won't filter new work just by asking myself, will this pay my bills? I will also ask, and I usually do, is will this leave me energy for what matters? Will I get to express something true? Optimizing purely for money leaves performance on the table. What I'm really trying to say is that purpose driven work really attracts better partners, keeps you in the game longer, and makes the results easier to replicate. But what does this look like in practice? I think it starts with keeping a tiny success filter next to your desk, such as a sticky note saying freedom, expression, energy. And all of these keywords are a reminder of whether or not you're really working towards your goals. If a project fails 2 out of these 3, maybe renegotiate the scope or think about what it actually matters in that scenario. Because not everything will fall into that umbrella that you create for yourself. So I encourage you to consider it on a case by case basis. Once you know what winning feels like, the next step isn't more posts, it's the right kind of visibility. Which brings me to lesson number 2, being seen intentionally. Because visibility isn't volume, it's relevance. Let me point you to 2 useful signals. First, Edelman's 2024 Brand Trust Report, which says most people want to share values with a brand before they buy. For instance, if you have values that align with a brand with sustainable packaging, you are naturally attracted to that over the others on the shelf. Secondly, Sprout Social's 2023 index found that what people actually remember is personalized care and responsiveness. Nobody cares about the trends of the week. So, my move is simple. When I share, I don't just drop the final version. I narrate my design decisions. I tell my audience or my community why I chose a colorway. What was this particular layout and why did I pick it? Or why did I dislike a direction that I had working going on for me? I always ask one specific question to my audience and wait for the data. It's definitely more work, but in the long term, it converts those strangers into conversations and those conversations into trust that leads to building the right audience and connects you with the right people. So, here's my tip, why not try it for yourself? Share your process, a 30 to 60-second video where you tell your people what you tried, what you changed, and why. Ask a direct question, and maybe it's something like which headline would you choose or which colorway would you choose, and then think of that data as data, because it's not for everyone and it may seem like it's judgment of your work, but essentially it's data that you can learn from and really use that feedback in your work. Because when the right people see you, strategy gets easier because now form can follow purpose. Which brings me to lesson number 3. Form follows purpose. You guessed it. Strategy before style every single time. Let me play you a clip from a TED Talk by Simon Sinek.
Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist?
So Simon Sinek says start with the why, then how, and then what. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Your visuals should prove what you believe and not distract from it. So, the creative angle of this, which is Dieter Ram's human first heuristics. Good design is useful, understandable, and honest. If a design choice doesn't help a human understand or succeed, it's not good. It's just shiny, it just looks pretty. And here's the business angle. When organizations tie design to purpose and outcomes, they tend to outperform. Not because the buttons are prettier, because the work is clearer, more consistent, and easier to learn from. For me personally, let's say before I open any tool that I'm working on, I write a purpose brief. I think about who this is for, the problem in their words, the change we want to see, and the promise we're making, and the single action that proves that it worked. Then I hold all the other things that are secondary. I think about type, color, layout against this brief. So the purpose brief comes first, then comes everything else. Think of it as a mood board for purpose. This takes the noise out of the process, and I feel like it helps me get closer to the right outcome faster. And with purpose set, we move faster. So now let's talk about how to move and learn faster too. Lesson number 4, experimenting with community and accepting imperfection. I think this is one of those things which is very hard for me personally to accept, that imperfection is okay and not everything has to be perfect before you ship it out to the world. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect until you share it, right? Teams and creators who experiment on purpose make better design decisions than teams who go with their gut. Having multiple options and quick feedback definitely beats polishing and iterating or just one design in private. Think of it like working on a type layout in private, and the more you work on it and the more time you spend on it, the longer you spend time wondering whether the word or the type design is spelled correctly. I know it has happened to one of you out there before. I honestly, I try to keep this folder of ideas that I think are really way out there, which probably has loud colors or headlines that I would not otherwise use. And then I try to test them out ever so often. I ask specific questions to my design besties and I think about ways that it can go. So there are two things that can happen here. Either it helps me find that missing puzzle piece or it needs a do-over. Either way, I'm getting feedback that might actually help me find that right rhythm and really use that to get to perfection. When you learn in public, you earn in public. Now, let's make sure what you share actually lasts. Which brings me to lesson number 5, story and originality over trends. Lean into your story, lean into your originality. Trends will buy you seconds, but story will buy you seasons. Let me zoom out for a second. The long term effectiveness of research in marketing says emotion led brand building, your distinctive story and point of view is what compounds over time. Activations like your call to actions and promos spike those results, but the story makes those spikes easier to repeat. So instead of asking what's trending this week, I ask what do I want people to remember about me next year? For me, it's the engineering to design journey, systems thinking to visual craft. Each week I try to pull one small moment from that story into my work, and it has doesn't have to be big or small. It can be anything that you'd like to share. And it's not to be trendy, but to be true to yourself. So the right clients show up for that perspective, for your perspective, and not for a template. Something that I would encourage you to do would be thinking about three prompts. I believe design should, and then what do you think design should? I believe clients deserve. I believe my work exists because. I would encourage you to read your answers, thread them into captions and proposals, and really think about what matters to you and what's your story. But how can you use this in your business? All right, let's do this. So, we covered five things that will actually help you hit your business goals without burning yourself out. Define success beyond money, being seen intentionally, letting form follow purpose, shipping drafts and learning in public, and building your story instead of chasing trends. If you've been posting and pitching and still unsure if you're moving forward, I hope this gave you a clearer edge for you to push on and a way to feel more in control of your creative business. Your next step is honestly tiny and immediate. Pick one move and do it in the next 24 hours of listening this. Write the 5-line purpose brief for the project that you're working on. Post a 60-second story or a process that asks one specific question to your audience. Adjust your last 9 posts and kill the ones that don't signal your brand values. It seems like it's small, but it's really helping you find the clarity in your bigger picture. If you try something, let me know how it went, tag me, DM me, and share this with someone who might think that this is useful. Remember, form follows purpose. Think about your process, your story, and everything in between. The studies and the prompts that I mentioned are in the show notes. Copy and paste them and try to use them in your own workflow. If this helped, post it to one friend who's stuck in the busy but not moving phase. It means a lot and it keeps these conversations going. I'm Anika, engineer turned designer, and this is Able Heads, where creativity meets business and we make it workable. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you in the next one.